to make sure that I do that right after I do Scott's introduction, because I don't want mine to go off. We are absolutely delighted to have Scot Siegel as our poet tonight. Scot is the author of 3 full-length books of poetry. The latest one is the collection of Extinct Stars and Other Poems, 2016. He has also Thousands Flee California Wildflowers in 2012 from Salmon Poetry of Ireland. Here's a quote. The late U.S. Poet Laureate Philip Levine recognized his long poem, Pages Torn from a Schoolmarm's Diary, as a finalist with honorable mention in the Nimrod International's 2012 Pablo Neruda Poetry Prize competition. He also has his writing as part of the permanent art installation in Portland's MAX Light Rail Transit. So maybe you'll tell us a little bit. I'm not quite sure where they are, but they're part of the permanent collection. Scot was here before. He read earlier. This is his second time here. We're delighted to have him. So would you join me in welcoming our poet for the evening, Scot Siegel.
Well, thank you, Tom, for that wonderful introduction, and thank you to the City of Milwaukee, the Letting Library, and of course the Poetry Committee. Very much appreciate being here. And I will say a word about the poetry that is placed along the Orange Line. The MAX Orange Line runs from Portland right through Milwaukee. I was, for a very short time, I was the interim planning director for the City of Milwaukee. I used to be that's what I do, my day job. I'm a city planner. And when Milwaukee found that they were short-staffed and they needed some help, I was just really thrilled that they asked me to help out because that was during the time that the city was going through the permitting process for the light rail line, which, as I'm sure you know, was not an easy time for Milwaukee. It was very contentious, and I felt like I could bring something to that process in a small way with the community and with TriMet and everyone who was trying to work on putting that together. When TriMet commissioned the Orange Linings project, I just thought that was wonderful. It wasn't my idea, it was just a great idea that emerged, and it resonated so well with Milwaukee and this part of our region. I just thought that's beautiful, and so I was just doubly honored when some of my lines of poetry were selected for that, along with many others. I think there were over 100 contributions out of thousands, submitted. And so one of the pieces, I think there's some around here somewhere, but I know there's one piece that's right on the west side of the Telecom Bridge where the paths merge, and it's sort of a nexus of buses and trains and people walking and OHSU. And so it's just, eventually I think all the foot traffic in there will wear it off. So, it's going to wear down, but just really pleased. Under a zipper of bridges, our green city thrums. So, yeah. So, yeah, Tom mentioned that I was here previously. That was 2009, and that was right after the publication of my first book of poems, Some Weather. And I remember that time because it was very cold. And actually, when my book came out, UPS couldn't deliver it in 2008 because there was too much snow. And so I thought, okay, I like this poetry business. Remember when the weatherman used chalk? Remember that? This is called The World in Our Hands. Remember when the weatherman used chalk? And those satellite shots came once every 12 hours? We used to warm our hands over television sets. The world was full of potential. Yes, we worried about a Cold War, the possibility of nuclear winter. Now we worry about winter in general and whether the ice caps are going the way of the dinosaurs and whether we will too. My mother wanted me to be a doctor or a lawyer, but I wanted to draw isobars and isotherms, high and low pressure cells and occluded fronts. I wanted to be the weatherman, like nobody's business. Then I forgot about the weather and did what all good sons must do. I blew off law school and became an urban planner. Though I'll always remember that frosted glass globe my parents gave me. It was electric, internally lit, and calibrated to the Earth's rotation. It even tracked the sun's path 24/7 until the bulb blew. Now I have the standard issue, a cardboard orb I bought for my daughters when they were in grade school. It's shellacked with countries whose names have changed. It doesn't get much use. These days, when our country's under siege and our leaders are doing their best to negotiate the end of the world, I take the world out of the closet and dust it off. And then I give it a good, hard spin. Thank you. Apprentice. The most powerful life skill is eye contact. You can start or stop a fight with that. Soothsaying is easier than you think, but harder than it looks. You can stop writing poems, but that does not stop the poems. Technically, love is not free. It is not subject to the laws of captivity. I want to go down in history and bring back a future worth remembering. Joy for no reason is the greatest wealth. This much is true.
Get some more volume here.
Us and them. When the power goes out, an older power switches on. Your heart pounds in the dark. The walls fade or fall away. The animal leaps from the wall and brushes against you. The cairns we leave behind, the moon knocks over. We frack and pollute. We lubricate earthquakes. The mind is the only object that can retain our bearings. Very soon, this will be a long time ago. When we were young, mornings came charted but uncluttered. Blue was the warmest color. Winter sun gave it zest, lent leaves and grass zeal. Stars wished upon revealed each day anew, unmade the days that came before. Now mornings come unmoored. We hurdle work weeks, our dashed dreams of spaceflight shuttered and shipped overseas. This poem I wrote after my father, who's still alive, but it was after something that he said, and I actually read it here 8 years ago, and it found its way into my most recent book, The Constellation of Extinct Stars, which is the book that Tom mentioned. And it's sort of taken on new meaning for me because my parents just announced after 53 years of marriage that they're getting divorced. And they're both pleased. It's the right thing for them to do. So This is called his final resting place. Father flies cross-country on the wings, Father flies cross-country from Saginaw. It's an important place name. On the wings of a lime green 59 Plymouth. Boards a plane in L.A. for Honolulu, then sells insurance on the beach to retirees. One day, he's trolling the shore break, and by a chance encounter, my future mother, who's 20, a San Franciscan vacationing with her parents, catches his eye. They spend a few days together getting to know him. Then she says goodbye, promises to write. This is how courtships used to begin. 4 years later, back in Saginaw and sick of his mother, Father, the wanderer, heads west again and meets Mother in a foggy diner not far from a gathering of North Beach poets. He'd never dreamed he'd start a family, could not conceive he'd work in the city, and never thought he'd run a printing shop or return to synagogue, much less with a son. But Grandpa insisted. He built the business and trusted his daughter's suitor with it. What could Father say? 40 years later, amidst the high rises of Waikiki, he tells me, should Mother precede him, we can find him not in the soot and rubble of Saginaw, and not in the oyster bars of San Francisco, and not on the 8th-story balcony at the Ilikai, flipping teriyaki thighs on a hibachi with the haules of Honolulu, but on the east shore of Oahu, the windward side, the side opposite their trysting beach. And he tells me we can find him any morning, barefoot in the rain shadow of the Kulau, wading the shore break, befriending lost dogs and charming their owners with stories of Waikiki in the early 60s. And he tells me with a glint in the eye that says he's gifted, and I can see it, the way he mixes with the Mokes, becoming one with them, a dark-skinned Midwesterner picnicking in the public waysides from Lanikai to Kainoi. And I can see already they love him, the way they take him in to feast on the succulent meat of Kalua pig, the sweet kulolo pudding, and the buttery flesh of mahi-mahi. And in the secret cave of grown men weeping, he tells me his bride has wandered off. The green sea and ethereal forests of Pele have taken her. And he tells me suffering is necessary. Grief is rich and good as poi, and the bitter leaves of the tea can cure all psychic evil. With a far-off look reminiscent of fate, he tells me it is a fine kind of suffering on the east shore of Oahu, where the clear creeks of a kuulau run sweeter than wine, and the ohilo eyes blooming never ends. Gate 23. Once I saw a man crying at the Ontario airport, but kept walking to my gate. I was not late. That was years ago, though it follows me. That man was me at 22, having lost my love to another guy. I was a wreck. A man stopped and knelt where I wept on the hard linoleum. He asked if I was okay. Could he help? I don't know where this is going. Who knows where any of us are heading in this life? At a friend's house last night for Diwali, after the lights and feast, as others chatted at the table, I dozed with a full stomach on our host's couch. Once on a plane, I heard a man explain to his wife, the world is an unforgiving place. They were being sued. Their 10-year-old daughter While walking the dog, let it loose, and it bit a neighbor. We are all wanderers. Sometimes we wander alone for what feels like years. Smiling first can be difficult. Coach. I've been giving this a lot of thought, maybe too much. After the in-flight snack with complimentary drink, I think we deserve a story. Something from a felt-covered book, softly tendered by a new mother with a Midwestern lilt. I wouldn't mind something from Seuss. Green eggs and ham would do. Or, while skirting the bright chill of Orion, I'd take a story with a time-warping wardrobe, a kinky witch, and a pious lion. The next time I fly, I'm smuggling a satchel of stories aboard, just in case we encounter a lack of reticence over Kansas or an uneasy silence over New York. Because who knows when we will ever be this close again. Aren't dogs great?
Yeah.
Depends, right? Our dog has two hearts. One that keeps her warm. The other jumpstarts my heart when I forget to breathe. Seriously, I think my dogs, our first dog passed away last fall, and we have the second dog still with us. She's 11, her name's Gretel, and she's the baby dog because she's always been the baby dog, so she still behaves like a puppy, which is wonderful. Although she has an enlarged heart, the vet tells us, so she takes 2 kinds of heart medicine. This is Stars from a Well. When she awakens from the dissipating dream, she leaves in folds of wool impressions, not of sun dancing on cold leaves, but love in the creases of the blanket where her body was, where the folds still hold the warmth of the dream she rose to leave, to pull the blinds back, to let the light in. The girl who could not forget. I remember how the town smelled like scorched liver that year. Mr. Richardson and his twin sons torched the tannery for insurance. We're all stained by untold date rapes, cat tortures, and other forms of euphemized hatred. The man from church who smelled like dust thought, we'd all burn if we let a little bit of the outside world in. But she had a gift, strong feelings for every person she'd ever met, details of conversations from as far back as 9, moments of speechlessness among estranged husbands and wives, and odd gestures by those whom we'd regard as only the briefest of acquaintances she could recall photographically. There was that boy from the mill who wandered into town and stared her down at the Circle K while stealing a box of rubbers. And the goon from Cheyenne who chased Charlene, our prom queen, from the park, her skirt all in tatters.
Sorry. Sorry, there.
We'll start over.
I'm very sorry.
Oh.
This cell phone thing is new to me, and I still can't figure out how to turn it off and on most or answer it.
Understood.
And I call people that I don't mean to.
Understood. The girl who could not forget. I remember how the town smelled like scorched liver that year. Mr. Richardson and his twin sons torched the tannery for insurance. We're all stained by untold date rapes, cat tortures, other forms of euphemized hatred. The man from church who smelled like dust thought, we'd all burn if we let a little bit of the outside world in. But she had a gift, strong feelings for every person she'd ever met, details of conversations from as far back as 9, moments of speechlessness from estranged husbands and wives, and odd gestures by those whom we'd regard as only the briefest of acquaintances she could recall photographically.
Sorry, I'm out of here.
There was that boy from the mill who wandered into town and stared her down at the Circle K while stealing a box of rubbers. And the goon from Cheyenne who chased Charlene, our prom queen, from the park, her skirt all in tatters. And the lanky one from Arizona whose parents had sent him to the boarding school down the road. When their eyes met, a coal seam erupted under the porch swing at the Elks Lodge and slowly began to burn. There was no word for autism. Other encounters were underwater skits, like when Mother asked the nephew of a great-aunt's friend to watch the toddlers after Easter dinner. He had an odd twitch, like a slow limp, on his left cheek. Mugs like his, from as far back as 5, would return fully formed in dreams that reeked of gasoline and tasted like baby aspirin. I remember our 10-year reunion. Back of the decrepit pergola at Rotary Park, volunteer firefighters with deadpan faces dropped like darts into the dunk tank. She was hunkered at the picnic table back of the willow. I was there in the shade of the oak, sun at my back, when the weather of her face changed. It clouded over like the Wasatch before a storm. When Father sat next to her on the bench, a patch of checkerboard tablecloth flinched, then turned black in the shadows as a rough hand, like a charred branch, brushed her knee. So that needed to be told. That's why we kept at it. The voluptuary at his back fence. All summer they swayed and swelled, ingrown, radial, pink and plump, purple, sugary pulp. Pear-shaped they hung, half hidden under a canopy of dusty palms amidst slender, shadowy crotches. Soft and bumpy, yet slick as underbellies of tree frogs, they smelled musky, like something you wouldn't want to touch, much less hold on your tongue or swallow. But that half honey, half human sweat-scented sack of bee jam caught a slant arrow of sun and drew her in, parted her lips, tugged her forth like a trout by a thread strung from her mind to her groin, and he watched her eat that late summer fig from a tree. California's on fire again. After a century of fire suppression policy, despite the flames that crowned the pines and charred the scarps, despite the breaks that scarred the farms and left the blaze to blanch the snags that riddle the slopes like bones, despite the slides and floods that feed silt-laced creeks in springtime, despite the winds that rack and twine the ridges, gusts that wick and whip and wring scant rains to rise and drift and fall and rise again like ghosts. Despite the feral lightning strikes that find no fuel to flare, petroglyphs sing up there. They lisp from crooks and cracks in cliffs above hidden salt lick ponds, the sweetest Paiute songs, hymns of cattail shoots and snakes and roots and hares and seeds and lizards snared and skinned and cured, and bighorn rams for coats and chaps and hats and hooks, and meat to last the whole winter through. Scientists at MIT have invented a chip that can reboot your memory.
Oh, really?
Really. The device can even implant memories of events that have not happened. I'm telling you this so the next time a swarm of deja vu shrapnel overtakes you, it won't be so scary, and you might even find it useful. I'm riding a train between Portland and the promise of an aurora borealis when the possibility of you skating on a lake in Michigan becomes real. Yellow alder leaves gloss the mouth of the tunnel that frames my trance when the man assigned to sit next to me offers to yield his seat to you. Because we are new to one another, outside dreams of migratory cranes, few rules govern. One is no pretense, which begets no history, no trajectory. How you come to sit next to me is beyond me, but within reach, so I hold your hand. A hand is a strange thing, the way it thinks. It seems to know what to do. When you ask me to watch your bag, it strikes me. I would trust you with the rest of my life. No crush prepares us for the next, even as each leaves an electrical charge that tastes like the past. Some trains pull away and return empty-handed. In a lifetime, many things do not come to pass. Every 3 seconds, a plane lifts off and the heart drops in the moment death decides what to do. The most loved I ever felt was nearly make-believe. The clouds had just lifted and the pines, weighted down with sugar snow, began to sway. The lake exhaled through fissures in its heart and cleared its throat. Because we are human, we make eye contact only one soul at a time. At night, when I close my eyes, I see you skating figure eights, waving back to me in the lemony light. That lemony light is William Stafford. You called it. More lemony light. Sunshine. Daddy, I like it when the sun interrupts us. Oh, yes, like when it burns through fog, splashing leaves, and touches the side of your face, warm as your mother's kiss. No, Dad, just the sun, all by itself. No kiss, no flame, no leaves. Just the sun's sudden rays pouring down right here, right now, on you and me. That was after something that my daughter Caroline said when she was 5. She said, Daddy, I like it when the sun interrupts us. But I'm easily distracted. The older I get, the more the river means to me. This is William Stafford's Something That Happens Right Now. I haven't told this before. By our house on the plains, before I was born, my father planted a maple. At night, after bedtime, When others are asleep, I go out and stand beside it and know all the way north and all the way south, air from fields wanders in, stars wait with me. All of us ache with the silence, needing the next thing but quiet. We lean into midnight and we lean back. On the rise to the west, the radio tower blinks, so many messages pouring by. A great surge comes rushing from everywhere and wraps all the land and sky. Where are we going? How soon will this house break loose and become a little speck lost in the vast night? My father and mother will die. The maple tree will stand right there. With my hand on that smooth bark, we will watch it all. Then my feet will come loose from earth and rise by the power of longing. I won't let the others know about this, but I will be everywhere, as I am right now, a thin tone like the wind, a sip of blue light, no source, no end, no horizon. Yeah. William Stafford. We fill our pockets. This is after Caroline, age 9. I think of you under your sheets hiding. A storm of your own making builds outside your window. Dreams like bats tug our tents, yours and mine, from afar. We are geologists. We fill our pockets with carnelian agates and less beautiful specimens. Clamshells, split and riddled by sea lice, false fossils, bits of iron slag we haul in t-shirt rucksacks from the shoreline. We keep them close, talismans to ward off nightmares and stranger premonitions. We care for them like brittle birds, the way I care for these words, little glass origami I carry down the mountain to tell you someday. So my younger daughter's in her first year of college now, and she's a fabulous writer, and her older sister's starting her first year of a PhD program in biostatistics, and so I'm very proud of them. Keeper. Daddy, when I raise my hand like this and brush the sky in front of us, I'm really patting the horse I miss, the one I met once on that family trip when you took us all to the mountains. Sometimes I dream we live there, and the dream goes on. Dad, cool mornings like this, when I lower my hand, I feel his mane like the wind through my fingers. You and Mom and Sister are there, and his name is Keeper. Keeper. Trick or treat. One of you is the girl wizard, the other Tina Fey impersonating Sarah Palin. Democrats on our street eat it up. Republicans adore you. One couple invites you inside. We do not know their names. 9/11 still stings, but we think that war is coming to an end. The recession is not yet hit. We want the black man to win. A woman could be next. This is what it was like raising you in 2008, when SNL was still quaint and anything was possible. Imagine that, if you can. I think we can begin to imagine that again. We should try to imagine that again. 4 tenses. There's no present like the present. It is the gift that keeps on giving. The future offers everything, promises nothing, and deliver something else. The past cannot remember what the future tried explaining to the present. When truth occurs, past, present, and future all sing in the same key. Okay, this is called parhelion. And you ever seen a sundog? Sundog is that ice rainbow on a clear day. This is it's called parhelion. And this is for Leanne, my older daughter, after winter break. At 21, you climb the Saniam sled hill as you've done so many times before. At least in my memory, which experiences everything you do as an endless echo. The same gate at 5, or how I remember 5, determined but playful, each stride intentional, swing dancer. You look back every 10 steps, admiring your own footwork, amplitude, altitude, each step a bit faster. I wave, but you do not look up. I wave again and point, but you do not see what I'm saying. Behind you, a sundog, an ice rainbow skitters across the bluest sky ever. I meant to tell you, it was a perfect day. An open mind is a periscope over the light and dark swells of a heart. Sometimes the sky is a balloon, the air heavy. Other times dry. Dry wind wicks your eyes. Sometimes it is crowded, everyone elbowing, trying to make room. Sometimes we are screaming, other times flying, sometimes filling it with laughter. At rare moments, we hover, speechless, as though God speaks to us through the balloon, and all we can do is wave. I've really enjoyed writing about or sort of riffing off of and reverberating from the notion of history. And so this book, The Constellation of Extinct Stars, actually has a whole sequence of persona poems that are sort of historical fiction or historical fiction in verse. And so I've really enjoyed writing about that. And this is just something more recently. History, the homemaker. History is independently wealthy. She has so many rooms, she's lost track. History is hoarse from having to repeat herself. She's losing her mind, but has all the time in the world. History knows how worlds come to an end. She lived in a convent once, but was caught revising the scripture. History is a wizard at math and believes in home remedies. She's not the Virgin Mary, kicks the baby out with the father. History craves something savory for a late night snack. She hates the History Channel more than science fiction. History critiques the British baking show while reclining in a bath. She barters the family jewels for bourbon, hawks the silver for food. History prefers cardamom to cinnamon. When history cooks, her moods swing like the moons of Jupiter. History has a habit of leaving the oven on. She's burned the house down so many times, you'd think she does it for the rush. Only courage and hope can save her. They rebuild the house with iron and cedar, treat the linens with camphor. History was arrested once for shooting up fiction. When drunk, she revises her autobiography to cheer herself up. Everyone tells history his or her secrets. History is the head mistress at the School of Hard Knocks. She does not wear pumps or grow her hair out for you. History loves allegory and wears paradox to the ball. She leaves early, something boiling at home. History cooks for armies. She fills your plate with more than you can eat. History knows the homeless are royalty. She keeps the leftovers warm for centuries. History is never alone. Her secret lover wears the old cologne. History leaves the door open. Okay, I think I've got 3 more poems here. Okay. This is Love, a Parable for my daughters. Once 2 met in a park or a party in the city or at school. One caught the eye of the other just as they were parting. Now they live far apart on opposite sides of a divide. On one side it is sunny, a blanket of fog on the other. Neither is a runner, but both get up and go for a jog. The air, warm or brisk, depending on the side of the divide, invigorates, and before they know it, they're running, but not at the same pace. The terrain is difficult and varied. The light is running out. They run anyway. They do not know, but they are running toward one another. This is not a story problem. You will not find it in the logical reasoning section of the LSAT or GRE. At every turn, a fork. Every pass, a new summit looms. They have so many options, and even more questions. See Dick run. See Jane run harder. See the road getting steeper, glazed with ice. The sky is falling, always falling. We cannot tell when we are falling too. It is not destiny, not gravity, not trigonometry. When someone falls for you, he or she may not have a chute. Only one of you can have it at a time. The chute keeps swapping, flopping in the wind. The lines tangle. Your love needs your help to figure it out. You keep falling as the train keeps blaring its horn. You keep falling. The chute's flopping in the wind. The lines tangle. Your love needs your help to figure it out. You reach as you fall. You fall and reach as far as you must. You reach for all that you can. You grasp at the one you trust. Sometimes you are facing the right direction. So, just waiting for that phone call. Dad, I'm engaged. Hasn't happened yet. And there's no hurry. This is Words for the Wedding Rehearsal Dinner. We'll let the train do its thing. The town of widowers. Here bush tits flock to the lattice work of dusk and soothe the fever. A train, disembodied from its whistle, pushes us along. The radio caught between stations is conversation. Some who live apart are less alone than those who live together. The half-life of a wish cannot be measured. Yet had we never met, I would miss you more. Here, the distance between solace and loneliness is the depth of the train's whistle. So take that. Okay, so I've got two more. Words for the wedding rehearsal dinner. They say every 7 years the body renews itself. One by one, every cell's replaced until your childhood, a shadow in the foreground, looks on, unrecognizable even to itself. That's why a moment is a miracle. Bay winds have ceased. Bees, drunk on blue hyacinths, have fallen to the ground, their tiny wings arrested. And every cell in you stands still, aglow, and we can tell. So I might read that at a wedding someday. Last piece here. Daughters here. I know America's let us down again and again and again. Don't worry. We can count on this country, the country within, the country of the heart, has no border. And we are eternally optimistic about the direction you are taking us. Thank you. So, once again, thank you so much for inviting me, Tom and the committee, Emmett and the board. I really appreciate it.
We are absolutely delighted that you were here. Thank you very much. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about when you write and how you write and what your practice is and just in producing all of these poems?
Certainly. So these poems were produced over about 15 years, and so most of them were written more recently. Some of them I hadn't read before. So I write whenever something occurs to me that I should write it down. And so I may jot something down on a piece of paper, or I might dictate it into a recorder, like my phone. I kind of go in bursts of activity, and I've found that when I can take some time off and just be by myself, or like I spent a couple of months in the high desert in southern Oregon through a program called Playa at Summer Lake, where I've been fortunate to be granted some time there, and I do a lot of writing there, but I tend to just write things that are not really a poem, and I put them away, and then I come back to them, and then I develop something from there. But I'm not I don't write daily. I just write whenever I can, really, yeah. So, thanks. I don't know if there are other questions or anything. I'd be glad to.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you have a connection with Ireland?
Well, I don't have a familial connection to Ireland. I had the good fortune of connecting with a publisher in Ireland who has published several local Oregon authors, and Lex Runsman actually is a fellow salmon poetry author. So my connection with Ireland is through the publisher, and I haven't even been to Ireland, so I really look forward to going there someday, and being among the Irish poets and the land of Yeats. That would be wonderful. Any other?
I have one more question. Is it tough combining being a city planner, and are they different places you feel like you need to be in, like hence Summer Lake or?
Yeah. So the question was, how do I kind of reconcile being a city planner with writing poems, and how does that work? And when I started writing poems, it was really, I started writing poems before I was a planner when I was a kid. And I find it's just a good creative outlet, and I don't necessarily write about my work, but sometimes my work finds its way into, what I write. And planning or engineering or, those scientific fields are very, precision, exacting, and poetry is more, poetry is very exacting too. The word choices and the line breaks and the form, the structure, how it's all put together is perhaps, that might be something that the two have in common. I think in my day job, I bring, I can use figurative language when it's appropriate to try to make a point. Being able to emote and actually, relate to people and have empathy is very important for anyone in public service, I think. And poetry is obviously, a really good vehicle for that, because that's really what I think we're doing, connecting with people, building community. So I think they have that in common as well. And that's what the series is about, I think, building community and bringing poetry and literary arts to the community. So good. Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
And Tom?
Who would you say influenced you? Who do you like? Who do you read?
Well, there's so many different influences, but just as far as poems that I carry around with me in my heart and that I go to, repeatedly, William Stafford. I really feel connected with his life's work and the writing, of course. And I just read whatever is available. Some of my favorite work is, are writers that we may not have even heard of. So, there's a poet. I'll just name someone because I feel like that's my duty is to put some names out there in the world. I like Diana Adams. She's from Ontario. I see quite a few people in the room whose writing I admire. I pretty far-ranging in what I read. But thanks. Thank you very much.
Well, is there any more questions?
There's one. You use beautiful diction. Your word choice. Where do you mine them from? What well do you draw them from? Unless you have an extensive vocabulary or a lexicon, where do you find these beautiful words that you're inserting into your poetry?
They're just out in the world, and I do spend a lot of time on choosing words, and I'm always revising, and the words are just such a gift. They pack so much. I think that's really the beauty of poetry, is that it just elevates the language, it heightens the senses. So thanks. Yeah. Thank you.